President Biden's Ukraine trip underscores need for a quick victory. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Today marks the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and it was fitting that just days before, President Biden made a trip to demonstrate firm U.S. support for that embattled country. Now, it is absolutely crucial that he follows up with substantive steps lest we drift into a potentially catastrophic crisis with Russia and China. The President and our European allies must cease their inhibitions, put them aside, and give Ukraine now what it needs to decisively and quickly beat back the invader. It is clear today that if we had provided Ukraine the weapons it needed in the first weeks of the war, it could have defeated the ill-led, ill-trained, and ill-equipped Russian forces. But fears of Putin actually using nukes or attacking Poland, which is the chief area through which military equipment and other forms of aids are shipped to Ukraine, stayed our hand. Instead of falling apart from the powerful, unexpected counterattacks of the Ukrainians, the once reeling Russians regrouped and redeployed. Ukraine was not given the means to take full advantage of the Russian shock and confusion. China is now considering sending military equipment to Russia to use against Ukraine. This raised the stakes involved in this conflict. Beijing may conclude that helping Russia sustain the war will eventually sap the resolve of the U.S. and NATO and lead to a bad deal for Ukraine and a victory for Vladimir Putin. China believes the U.S. and Europe are in decline and that Beijing will eventually dominate the world along with Russia and Iran as very junior partners. To prevent this war from bloodily dragging on with no decisive outcome, a situation much desired by our global adversaries, we must supply Kyiv with F-16 fighter aircraft and those old MiG-29s that Poland and other formerly communist countries have. Ukraine needs delivery as fast as possible of those promised tanks and in far greater numbers than currently contemplated. The U.S. says it will supply 31 Abrams tanks, but only newly manufactured ones that are still being built. For crying out loud, we possess well over 3,000 today. Ukraine must also get long-range missiles to disrupt Russian supply lines for planned offensives. Biden's lack of urgency is now inexcusable and could have consequences of the utmost seriousness. In addition to helping Ukraine now, China's threat to send weapons can also be countered by upping naval patrols in the South China Sea, a critical international body of water that Beijing wants to control. Most convincingly, the U.S. should seriously upgrade and expand our depleted military. That would demonstrate the U.S. is rising to the challenge of the growing threats posed by Beijing. President Ronald Reagan did this against the Soviet Union in the early 1980s, which was decisive in winning the Cold War. President Biden should do no less. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.